I want you to do something right now. Calculate your hourly wage. Take your annual salary, divide it by 2,000 hours. That's roughly a full-time work year, and tell me what your time is worth per hour. Got that number? Good. Now I want you to think about every decision you made in the last week where you traded time to save money. Every time you drove across town to save $5 on something. Every time you spent 3 hours doing something yourself that you could have paid someone $50 to do. Every time you waited in line for an hour to get a deal. Every time you spent your Saturday doing yard work or home repairs instead of paying someone. Now I want you to ask yourself a question. Were those decisions actually saving you money, or were they costing you money disguised as savings? Because here's what I see constantly. People who make $30, $40, $50 an hour or more spending hours of their time to save amounts of money that are less than what they earn per hour. They'll spend 4 hours comparison shopping to save $60. They'll drive an extra 20 miles to save $8 on gas. They'll spend an entire weekend doing home repairs to save $200. And they think they're being financially responsible. They think they're being smart with money. They're not. They're being terrible with money because they fundamentally don't understand the most important resource they have. Not their income, not their savings, their time. Time is the only truly finite resource. You can always make more money. You can never make more time. And when you waste time to save small amounts of money, you're making a trade that keeps you poor forever. Let me be very clear about what I'm saying. I'm not telling you to be careless with money. I'm not telling you to overpay for things. I'm telling you that your time has value, real, calculable, quantifiable value. And when you spend time to save money and the money you save is less than what your time is worth, you're losing money. You're just losing it in a way that doesn't show up on your bank statement so you don't notice it. Rich people understand this instinctively. They understand that time is their most valuable asset. They understand that every hour spent on low-value activities is an hour they can't spend on high-value activities. They understand that saving $20 by doing something themselves when they could pay someone else $20 and use that time to earn $100 is not savings. It's a loss, an $80 loss. Poor people get this backwards. They hoard their money and spend their time freely. Rich people hoard their time and spend their money strategically. And that difference, that fundamental difference in how you value and allocate your most important resources, that's one of the biggest factors determining whether you build wealth or stay broke. I'm going to walk you through 5 specific ways you're wasting your most valuable asset. 5 ways you're staying poor by trying to save money with your time, and I'm going to show you exactly how to fix this, how to start thinking about time the way wealthy people do. Because once you understand this, once you truly internalize that your time has value and you need to protect it and invest it as carefully as you protect and invest your money, your entire financial trajectory changes. But first, if you're serious about building wealth, if you're tired of working hard and feeling like you're getting nowhere, if you want to understand how wealthy people think about resources differently than everyone else, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what we do here is challenge the conventional wisdom that keeps people poor. We look at the strategies that actually work, not the comfortable lies that make you feel responsible while keeping you broke. Let's get into it. Let me tell you about someone I know, intelligent person, makes about $70,000 a year. That's roughly $35 an hour. And this person spends probably 10 to 15 hours a week couponing, deal hunting, price comparing, driving to multiple stores to get the best prices on groceries and household items. 10 to 15 hours a week. That's between 500 and 750 hours a year. At their effective hourly rate of $35, they're spending $17,500 to $26,000 worth of their time annually on this activity. And how much are they saving? Maybe $2,000 to $3,000 a year? Maybe. They're spending $17,000 worth of time to save $3,000 in money. They're losing $14,000 a year and thinking they're being financially savvy. They're destroying their own wealth through what they believe is responsible financial behavior. Now I can already hear the objections. But Kevin, I'm not working those hours anyway. That time would just be wasted. I might as well save money with it. Wrong. Completely wrong. Those hours aren't free just because you're not currently working. Those hours could be used to develop skills that increase your earning power. They could be used to build a side business. They could be used to network and create opportunities. They could be used to rest and recover so you're more productive during your working hours. They could be used to spend quality time with family or on hobbies that actually enrich your life. Every hour you spend chasing deals and clipping coupons is an hour you're not spending on activities that could actually move your financial situation forward. It's an opportunity cost. And for most people, that opportunity cost is massive because the skills required to be an extreme couponer, the attention to detail, the organization, the persistence, those skills could be applied to income-generating activities that would produce far more value. Here's what kills me about this mentality. The people who are most obsessed with couponing and deal chasing are often the people who are most stressed about money. And they're stressed about money because they're not making enough money. And they're not making enough money because they're spending all their available time and mental energy on extracting marginal savings instead of on increasing their income. They're stuck in a poverty loop of their own creation. Let me give you the math that should govern this. If an activity saves you less money per hour than you earn per hour, you shouldn't do it. Period. If you make $30 an hour and an activity saves you $15 but takes 2 hours, you just lost $30. You should have paid someone else to do it and use those 2 hours to earn $60 or develop skills that will help you earn more in the future. Now there are exceptions. If you genuinely enjoy couponing, if it's a hobby that brings you satisfaction independent of the savings, fine, do it. But don't lie to yourself that it's a wealth building strategy. It's not. It's entertainment that happens to save a bit of money. That's different. I'm talking about people who don't enjoy it, who find it stressful and time-consuming, but who do it anyway because they think it's financially responsible. Here's what you should do instead. Set a threshold. Any potential savings that requires more than 30 minutes of time and saves less than your hourly rate, you skip it. You just pay the higher price and move on with your life. You redirect that time to your career, to skill development, to side income, to anything that actually increases your earning power instead of marginally decreasing your expenses. And stop driving around to different stores to save money. The gas you burn, the time you waste, the mental energy you expend, it's almost never worth the savings unless we're talking about major purchases. Buying your groceries at one store instead of optimizing across 3 stores might cost you an extra $10 a week. That's $520 a year. But the time you save, probably 3 or 4 hours a week, that's 150 to 200 hours a year you could spend on increasing your income. Which activity do you think has a better return? Rich people don't coupon. They don't price compare for hours. They don't chase deals because they understand that their time is their most valuable asset and spending it to save pennies is the opposite of wealth building. They buy what they need at a fair price and they move on. They're not getting ripped off. They're just not optimizing for the last 2% of savings because they know that their time is worth more than that 2%. This is one of the most most pervasive and destructive patterns I see in people who struggle financially. The belief that you should do everything yourself because paying someone else is wasting money. They do their own yard work. They do their own home repairs. They do their own car maintenance. They do their own taxes. They do their own bookkeeping if they have a side business. They do everything themselves because paying someone feels like an unnecessary expense. Let me tell you what's actually happening. You're making maybe $40 an hour at your job. You spend 4 hours on Saturday mowing your lawn, trimming hedges, weeding, doing yard work. You saved $80 by not hiring a lawn service, but you spent 4 hours, which at your effective earning rate is worth $160. You lost $80, and you probably did a worse job than a professional would have done because yard work isn't your skill set. But it's worse than just the immediate financial loss. Those 4 hours on Saturday, you were probably tired. You probably spent the rest of the day recovering. You didn't have energy for your family. You didn't have mental space to think about your career or work on a side project. You traded your weekend, your rest time, your family time for yard work that you could have paid someone $80 to do better and faster. Or let's talk about home repairs. Something breaks. You're handy enough that you think you can fix it yourself. So you spend 6 hours over a weekend watching YouTube videos, going to the hardware store twice because you got the wrong part the first time, struggling with the repair, and eventually getting it fixed. A professional could have done it in 2 hours for $150. You saved $150, but you spent 6 hours. If your time is worth even $25 an hour, you spent $150 worth of time. You broke even at best, except you didn't break even because the professional would have done it correctly the first time with a warranty, and your DIY job might fail in 6 months and you'll have to do it again or eventually hire that professional anyway. And let's talk about the mental cost, the stress of dealing with home repairs, the frustration when things don't work right, the time spent researching and planning, the anxiety about whether you're doing it correctly. All of that has a cost. It's not free. It's costing you mental energy that you could be directing toward your career, toward income generation, toward activities that actually build wealth. Here's the principle. You should only do something yourself if one of two conditions is true. Either you genuinely enjoy doing it, it's a hobby or a form of relaxation for you, or you can't afford to pay someone else and it absolutely must be done. If neither of those is true, you should be paying someone else to do it and using your time for higher value activities. Now I know what you're thinking. But Kevin, I don't have money to pay people to do things. That's why I do it myself. And this is where we get to the heart of the problem. You don't have money to pay people because you're spending all your time doing low-value activities instead of high-value activities. You're stuck in a cycle where you're too broke to pay for services, so you do everything yourself, which takes time away from earning more money, which keeps you too broke to pay for services. You need to break this cycle, and you break it by ruthlessly prioritizing your time for the highest value activities. If you're spending 10 hours a week on household tasks, yard work, and DIY projects, that's 520 hours a year. What could you do with 520 hours? You could learn a high-income skill. You could build a side business. You could network and create career opportunities. You could get a part-time job in your field that pays well. Any of those options would generate far more than the few $1,000s you're saving by doing everything yourself. Here's what wealthy people do. They outsource ruthlessly. They pay people to do anything that they can't do better, faster, or cheaper than a professional. They protect their time fiercely. They understand that their time is their most valuable asset, and they should only be spending it on activities that generate significant value, whether that's income, skill development, relationship building, or genuine rest and enjoyment. You need to start thinking this way. Make a list of everything you do yourself that you could pay someone else to do. Yard work, house cleaning, basic home repairs, meal prep, whatever. Next to each item, write how much time it takes you per week or month and how much it would cost to pay someone else. Do the math. Calculate the hourly rate. If you're spending time on activities that effectively pay you less than your actual earning rate, you need to stop doing them and redirect that time to earning more or building skills. This feels counterintuitive. It feels like spending money, but it's not spending, it's investing. You're investing money to buy time, and then you're investing that time into activities that generate more value. That's how you actually build wealth, not by hoarding money and spending time freely, but by investing money strategically to free up time for high-value activities. This is a big one, and it's one that people rationalize constantly without actually doing the math. I'm talking about people who live far from work to save money on housing. They buy a house or rent an apartment that's 45 minutes, an hour, sometimes 90 minutes away from their job because housing is cheaper out there. And they think they're making a smart financial decision because they're saving $300, $400, $500 a month on housing costs. Let me show you what's actually happening. You're commuting 2 hours a day. That's 10 hours a week. That's 520 hours a year. Let's say you make $60,000 a year. That's about $30 an hour. Your commute is costing you $15,600 a year in time. But you're saving maybe $6,000 a year on housing. You're losing $9,600 a year and you think you're saving money. But it's even worse than that because that calculation assumes your commute time is worth the same as your working time. It's not. Your commute time is worth more because commuting is exhausting. It's stressful. It depletes your energy. When you get home after a 2-hour daily commute, you're done. You have nothing left to give. You can't work on side projects. You can't develop skills. You can't be present with your family. You're just trying to recover enough to do it again tomorrow. Studies show that long commutes are associated with decreased job performance, decreased life satisfaction, worse health outcomes, and lower career advancement. You're not just losing the time you spend commuting, you're losing productivity during your working hours. You're losing opportunities for advancement because you're too tired to excel. You're losing quality of life. And let's talk about the actual financial costs beyond the time value. Gas or public transit costs, vehicle wear and tear if you're driving, the increased car maintenance from the extra miles, the higher insurance premiums, the increased likelihood of accidents. When you add all of that up, the actual cost savings from cheaper housing gets eaten up pretty quickly by transportation costs. But even if we ignore all of that, even if we just look at pure time value, the math is clear. Living close to work, even if it costs more in housing, is almost always the better financial decision if you value your time appropriately, because the time you save can be redirected to career advancement, skill development, side income, or quality of life improvements that more than compensate for the higher housing costs. Here's a real example. I know someone who moved from a downtown apartment that cost $2,000 a month to a suburban house that cost $1,500 a month, saved $500 a month, $6,000 a year. Great deal, right? Except their commute went from 15 minutes to 75 minutes each way. That's 2.5 hours a day, 12.5 hours a week. Before the move, they were working on a side business in the evenings. After the move, They were too exhausted from the commute. The side business died. That side business was generating about $15,000 a year. They traded $15,000 in side income for $6,000 in housing savings. They lost $9,000 a year. Now, I understand that not everyone can afford to live close to work in expensive cities. I get it. There are real constraints. But most people haven't actually done this math. They haven't calculated the true cost of their commute. They haven't asked themselves if there's a middle ground, somewhere that's not right downtown, but not an hour and a half away either. They haven't explored whether their company would let them work remotely a few days a week to reduce the commute burden. They just saw cheaper housing and grabbed it without considering the full picture. Here's what you should do. Calculate your true commute cost. Time spent commuting multiplied by your hourly rate plus actual transportation costs. Compare that to the housing savings. If you're losing money, which most people with long commutes are, you need to either move closer to work or find ways to monetize the commute time, like using public transit so you can work during the commute or advocating for remote work options. And if you're making a decision about where to live relative to work, run this calculation first. Don't just look at the housing cost. Look at the total life cost, including time, transportation, energy depletion, and opportunity cost. A more expensive apartment close to work is often dramatically cheaper when you account for everything. Rich people understand this. That's why wealthy people often live in expensive urban areas close to where they work despite being able to afford to live anywhere. They're not stupid. They're not being ripped off on housing. They understand that time is their most valuable asset, and they're willing to pay a premium for housing that minimizes time waste and maximizes their ability to be productive and live well. I want you to think about the last time you waited in line for something. Black Friday sales, a restaurant that doesn't take reservations, a sample sale, a store opening, a government office, a popular tourist attraction without buying skip-the-line tickets. How long did you wait? An hour? 2 hours? 4 hours? What was that time worth? Let me tell you about a phenomenon I see constantly. People will wait in line for hours to save money or get a deal. They'll camp out for Black Friday. They'll wait 2 hours for a table at a trendy restaurant because they don't want to pay for a reservation service. They'll spend half a day at the DMV because they didn't want to pay extra for an appointment service. And they think they're being smart. They think they're getting a deal. They're not getting a deal. They're paying for that item with their time. And in most cases, they're paying far more in time value than they're saving in money. A Black Friday deal that saves you $200 but requires you to wait in line for 4 hours only makes sense if your time is worth less than $50 an hour. If you make more than $50 an hour, you're losing money. But it's not just about the hourly rate calculation. It's about the opportunity cost. Those 4 hours you spent waiting in line, what else could you have done with them? Could you have worked? Could you have built something? Could you have learned something? Could you have spent quality time with people you care about? Could you have rested so you're more productive later? Every minute spent waiting in line is a minute you're not spending on something that could actually improve your life. And let's talk about the psychological cost. Waiting in line is miserable. It's boring. It's frustrating. It's exhausting. It depletes your mental energy. After waiting in line for hours, you're not in a good state to be productive or creative or present. You've traded hours of your life feeling irritated and bored for what? A modest savings on a thing you probably didn't need that badly if you weren't willing to pay full price for it. Here's a hard truth. If you wouldn't buy something at full price, you probably don't actually need it. And if you don't actually need it, then getting a deal on it isn't savings. It's just spending that you've rationalized by getting a discount. Real savings is not buying the thing at all. Waiting in line for hours to buy something you wouldn't have bought at full price isn't being financially responsible. It's wasting time and money simultaneously. Now, I understand there are situations where waiting is unavoidable. Government services that don't offer alternatives, medical appointments, things like that. Fine. But those are different from choosing to wait in line for deals or for restaurants or for events when there are options to skip the line by paying money. And let me talk specifically about restaurants. If you're waiting 90 minutes for a table at a restaurant, you're paying for that meal with 90 minutes of your life. If your time is worth $40 an hour, you just paid $60 in time to wait for your table. Add that to the cost of the meal, and suddenly the moderately priced restaurant isn't so moderately priced anymore. You would have been better off going to a slightly more expensive restaurant that takes reservations or offers priority seating. Here's the principle. Anytime you can pay money to skip a line or reduce waiting time, you should do the math. What does it cost to skip the line? How much time does it save? What's your hourly rate? If the cost to skip the line is less than the time savings multiplied by your hourly rate, you should pay to skip every time. No exceptions. But most people don't do this math. They see the cost to skip the line as an expense. They don't see the waiting time as an expense. So they wait. They choose to pay with time instead of money. And because time doesn't show up on their credit card statement, they don't realize they're paying far more than they would have paid to skip. Rich people skip lines. They pay for TSA pre-check and clear at airports. They pay for priority boarding. They pay for VIP access. They pay for concierge medical services. They pay for express lanes on toll roads. Not because they're wasteful with money, because they understand that their time is valuable and paying modest amounts to save significant time is an excellent investment. You need to start thinking this way. Your time is not free. Waiting is not free. Every hour you spend waiting is an hour you could have spent earning, learning, building, or living. Start valuing your time at least as much as you value your money. Start being willing to pay money to buy back time. That shift in mindset, that willingness to spend money to gain time, that's one of the fundamental differences between people who stay broke and people who build wealth. This is perhaps the most insidious time trap because it masquerades as financial prudence. I'm talking about people who won't invest in tools, technology, or equipment that would save them significant time because they see it as an unnecessary expense. They use old, slow technology because buying new technology feels like spending money. They do things manually that could be automated. They use free but inefficient tools instead of paid but efficient tools, and they think they're being financially responsible. Let me give you some examples. Someone who makes $50,000 a year, that's about $25 an hour, using a computer that's 8 years old. It's slow, it crashes. Tasks that should take 5 minutes take 15 minutes because they're fighting with the technology. They probably waste an hour a day fighting with their old, inadequate technology. That's 5 hours a week. That's 260 hours a year. At $25 an hour, they're losing $6,500 a year in productivity. A decent new computer costs maybe $800 to $1,200. It would pay for itself in time savings in less than 2 months, but they won't buy it because spending $1,200 feels expensive. So they keep losing $6,000 a year in time value because they won't make a $1,200 investment. That's insane. That's the opposite of financial wisdom. Or consider someone who runs a small business or does freelance work. They're doing all their bookkeeping manually in spreadsheets because they don't want to pay $40 a month for accounting software. They probably spend 4 or 5 hours a month on bookkeeping tasks that the software could automate down to 30 minutes. They're spending 4.5 hours a month, 54 hours a year to save $480 in software costs. If their time is worth anything over $9 an hour, they're losing money. And if they're running a business, their time is worth way more than $9 an hour. Or think about someone who won't pay for grocery delivery or meal kit services because those services cost more than buying groceries themselves. They spend 6 hours a week meal planning, grocery shopping, and food prep. If a service could reduce that to 2 hours a week for an extra $100 a month, they're buying back 4 hours a week. That's over 200 hours a year. If their time is worth more than $6 an hour, which it is, they should be using the service. The pattern is consistent. People see the cost of tools and technology. They don't see the time savings. So they make false economies. They save small amounts of money while wasting massive amounts of time. And time is the one resource you can never get back. Here's what wealthy people do. They invest heavily in tools and technology that save time. They have the newest, fastest computers. They pay for software that automates routine tasks. They pay for services that handle low-value activities. They're not being wasteful. They're making rational economic calculations. They're investing money to buy time, and then they're using that time for high-value activities. There's a concept in business called return on investment. You invest money in something, and it generates returns. Time-saving tools have incredibly high return on investment if you value your time appropriately. A $1,000 investment in technology that saves you 2 hours a week is $1,000 that buys you over 100 hours a year. If your time is worth more than $10 an hour, that investment pays for itself in less than a year. Every year after that is pure profit in time savings. You need to start making these calculations. Look at every tool, every piece of technology, every service that could save you time. Calculate how much time it would save. Multiply that by your hourly rate. If the time savings value exceeds the cost within a reasonable period, usually a year or less, you should buy it. Every time, and stop using free but inferior tools when paid tools would save significant time. Free email services with limited storage that require you to constantly manage and delete emails. Free project management tools that don't integrate well and require manual work. Free design tools that are clunky and slow compared to professional software. The time you lose fighting with inferior tools vastly exceeds the cost of paying for professional-grade alternatives. Here's the principle. If a tool or technology would save you at least 2 hours a month, and the annual cost is less than your hourly rate times 24, buy it. That's a 200% return on investment in year 1. In year 2 and beyond, it's pure profit. That's a better return than almost any financial investment you could make. But most people don't think this way. They see the cost and don't see the time savings. So they stay broke, working constantly, exhausted, inefficient, wondering why they can't get ahead. And the answer is they're not investing in the tools that would let them use their time efficiently. They're being penny wise and pound foolish. They're hoarding money while hemorrhaging time. And time is the more valuable resource. Let me bring all of this together with the core insight that changes everything once you truly understand it. Time is money. That's not just a saying. It's literal truth. Your time has monetary value. When you waste an hour, you're wasting money. When you invest an hour in high-value activities, you're making money. The exchange rate between time and money is your effective hourly earning rate. But here's the part most people miss. The exchange goes both ways. Time is money, yes, but money can also buy time. And buying time with money, when done strategically, is one of the best investments you can make. Because time is finite. You get a fixed amount. You can't make more of it. But you can buy it back from low-value activities by paying money. When you pay for a house cleaner, you're buying time. When you pay for grocery delivery, you're buying time. When you pay for a lawn service, you're buying time. When you pay for better tools and technology, you're buying time. And if you use that purchased time for activities that generate more value than what you paid, you're making a profit. This is how wealthy people think. They're constantly asking, what is my time worth? What am I spending it on? Can I buy back time from low-value activities and redirect it to high-value activities? And when the answer is yes, they spend the money without hesitation because they understand it's not spending, it's investing. Poor people think the opposite way. They hoard money and spend time freely. They'll spend hours to save dollars. They'll do everything themselves because paying someone feels like wasting money. They'll use inferior tools because buying better tools feels expensive. They value their money more than their time. And that's backwards. That's why they stay poor. Your time is your most valuable asset, more valuable than money. Because money is replaceable. Time is not. You can always make more money. You will never make more time. Every hour you waste, it's gone forever. You can't get it back. You can't save it. You can't invest it after the fact. Once time is spent, it's spent. So the question you need to ask yourself with every decision is this: am I spending my time on the highest value activity available to me right now? And if the answer is no, if you're spending time on something low value that you could pay someone else to do, or that you could eliminate entirely, you're destroying your wealth. You're staying poor through poor time management disguised as financial responsibility. Here's the decision framework you need to adopt. For every activity in your life, calculate 3 things. How much time does it take? What is the monetary cost if you do it yourself? What is the monetary cost if you pay someone else? Then do the math. If doing it yourself saves you less money per hour than your effective hourly rate, you should pay someone else and use that time for higher value activities. And higher value activities aren't just earning more money at your job. They're also skill development that increases your future earning power. They're building side businesses or side income. They're networking and creating opportunities. They're rest and recovery so you can perform better during working hours. They're quality time with family that improves your relationships and life satisfaction. All of those have value, often significant value, more value than saving $20 on something you could have paid someone else to do. You need to start protecting your time as fiercely as you protect your money. You need to start valuing your time at least as much as you value your dollars. You need to start being willing to spend money to buy time. And you need to start investing your time deliberately in high-value activities instead of spending it thoughtlessly on low-value activities just because they're free. That's the shift that changes everything. That's the difference between working hard your entire life and staying broke and working strategically and building real wealth. It's not about working more hours. It's about making sure the hours you work are spent on activities that generate maximum value. And that requires being willing to pay money to eliminate or outsource low-value activities. All right, I've given you the framework. Now let me give you the specific action steps. Here's exactly what you need to do starting today to stop wasting your most valuable asset and start using it to build wealth. First, calculate your true hourly rate. Take your annual income, divide by 2,000. That's your baseline hourly rate. Now add the value of your benefits and multiply by 1.5 to account for your potential earning power if you were fully optimized. That's your true time value. That's what every hour of your life is worth. Write that number down. Put it somewhere you'll see it every day. Second, do a time audit. For 1 week, track everything you do and how long it takes. Work, commute, chores, errands, everything. At the end of the week, categorize each activity as either necessary high value, necessary low value, or unnecessary. High value activities are things that directly generate income or build skills or relationships that will generate future income. Everything else is low value or unnecessary. Third, identify activities where you're trading time for less money than your hourly rate. Look at your low-value necessary activities. For each one, research what it would cost to pay someone else to do it. If the cost per hour is less than your hourly rate, that activity is a candidate for outsourcing. Make a list of these activities prioritized by time savings. Fourth, start outsourcing immediately. Pick the top 3 time-wasting activities from your list. The ones that take the most time and cost the least to outsource. Hire someone to do them this week. Yes, this week. House cleaning, yard work, basic errands, whatever it is. Take the time you save and explicitly schedule it for high-value activities. Don't just let it disappear into random scrolling or TV watching. Fifth, audit your tools and technology. Make a list of every tool you use regularly that's old, slow, inefficient, or inadequate. Calculate how much time you waste dealing with poor tools. For each tool, research what the professional-grade alternative costs. If the annual cost is less than the time savings multiplied by your hourly rate, buy the better tool. A new computer, professional software, whatever you need. Buy it this month. Sixth, eliminate unnecessary time wasters. Look at activities in your unnecessary category. Things you do out of habit or social obligation that provide no real value. Stop doing them. Say no. Create boundaries. Every hour you reclaim from unnecessary activities is an hour you can invest in building wealth. Seventh, move closer to work or negotiate remote work. If you have a long commute, start actively working on reducing it. Talk to your employer about remote work options. Start looking at housing closer to work. Run the real numbers on what it would cost versus what you're losing in commute time. Make a plan to reduce your commute in the next 6 to 12 months. Eighth, invest in your skills during your reclaimed time. Whatever time you buy back by outsourcing and optimizing, invest at least half of it in skill development. Take courses, read books, practice new skills, whatever increases your earning power. The goal is to increase your hourly rate so that more activities become worth outsourcing and the gap between what you earn and what you spend grows. Ninth, track your time ROI monthly. At the end of each month, calculate how much time you saved through outsourcing and optimization. Calculate the value of that time. Compare it to what you spent. This keeps you honest and keeps you motivated. You should be consistently seeing that buying time with money is generating positive returns. 10th, teach this framework to your family. If you have a partner, have this conversation with them. Make sure you're both valuing time appropriately and making decisions together about how to invest money to buy time. If you have kids, teach them that time has value, that it's their most important resource, that they should be strategic about how they use it. Here's what you need to understand. You cannot save your way to wealth while wasting your time. You cannot work your way to wealth while spending your time on low-value activities. Building wealth requires not just managing your money, but managing your time. And most people are terrible at managing their time because they don't value it appropriately. They see money as finite and precious, which it is, but they see time as abundant and replaceable, which it's not. Time is the most finite resource. You get roughly 80 years if you're lucky. That's 700,000 hours. Less than 1 million hours to live your entire life. Every hour you waste doing something low value is an hour you're stealing from yourself. An hour you'll never get back. An hour that could have been spent building wealth, building relationships, building skills, building a life worth living. Rich people understand this viscerally. That's why they're willing to pay seemingly absurd amounts for services that save time. That's why they live close to work despite high housing costs. That's why they invest heavily in tools and technology. That's why they outsource everything that doesn't require their specific skills. They're not being wasteful, they're being strategic. They're investing money to buy their most valuable resource, time, and then they're investing that time in high-value activities. They're using saved time to build businesses, develop skills, create opportunities, think strategically about their careers and investments. They're using it to rest and recover so they can perform at peak levels. They're using it to build relationships that create value. Every hour of bought-back time gets invested in something that generates returns. That's the cycle that builds wealth. Earn money, invest money to buy time, invest time in high-value activities that increase earning power, earn more money, buy more time, invest in even higher value activities. It's a flywheel. And once you get it spinning, wealth accumulation accelerates. But most people never start the flywheel. They stay stuck in the poverty cycle. They're too broke to buy time-saving services, so they do everything themselves, which takes time away from earning more, which keeps them too broke to buy time-saving services. They never escape. They work hard their entire lives, exhausted, stressed, time poor, and money poor simultaneously. You need to break out of that cycle. And you break out by starting to value your time appropriately, by being willing to invest money to buy time even when money is tight, by using bought-back time deliberately for high-value activities, by increasing your earning power so you can buy more time, by creating the flywheel effect. This is uncomfortable. Paying for services when you could do it yourself feels wrong. It feels like waste. It feels like luxury, but it's not. It's investment. It's strategic resource allocation. It's doing what wealthy people do. And if you want to become wealthy, you need to start making the decisions wealthy people make even before you feel like you can afford to. If this has changed how you think about time, if you're realizing you've been making terrible trade-offs between time and money, if you're seeing clearly that you're staying poor by trying to save money with your time, then I need you to take action right now. First, hit that like button. Let the algorithm know this message matters, that people need to understand the real value of their time. Second, leave a comment telling me which of these 5 time traps you've been caught in. The couponing mentality, doing everything yourself, the long commute, waiting in lines, not investing in tools. Be honest. Acknowledging the pattern is the first step. Third, subscribe to this channel and become a member. Join a community of people who understand that time is their most valuable asset, who understand that protecting and investing time is just as important as protecting and investing money, who are committed to making strategic decisions about how they use their most finite resource. Your time is running out. Every day, you get 24 hours. You can spend those hours on low-value activities that keep you poor, or you can invest those hours in high-value activities that build wealth. The choice is yours, but understand that not choosing is a choice. Letting your time get consumed by low-value activities by default is choosing to stay poor. Rich people don't have more time than you. They have the same 24 hours. The difference is they use those hours strategically. They protect their time. They invest in buying back time from low-value activities. They spend their time on things that actually matter, and they get wealthy doing it. You can do the same thing. But you have to start. You have to start valuing your time. You have to start being willing to spend money to buy time. You have to start investing your time in high-value activities. That shift, that fundamental shift in how you think about and use your most valuable resource, that's what changes everything. Your time is worth more than you think. Start acting like it. Start protecting it. Start investing it. Start building wealth with it. That's how you win. That's how you escape the poverty cycle. That's how you actually become wealthy instead of just working hard and staying broke. Now go do it. Your time is ticking. Make it count.